Welcome back to the O Show, everything crypto and NFTs every day. And yes, of course, Bitcoin also. I've got a very special guest. I've got a friend of mine, Mr. Bruce Fenton, on the show today. If you guys don't know who Bruce is, you're missing out. Bruce, please tell the people who you are and why they need to listen to this show.
Well, thanks for having me. They need to listen to this show if they care about freedom and economics and Bitcoin and the world. And where we're going next, because it's times of exciting and chaotic change. We've got to be on the right side of it.
Are you a toxic Bitcoiner?
I'm a non-toxic Bitcoiner. I'm a non-toxic I'm a Bitcoin monetary maximalist. I think it's the best form of money. But I've always had, and I think I'm proud of being known in the industry as somebody who's kind of gotten along with everybody. I don't agree with the economics of a lot of different coins and projects, and there are things that are scams out there. I think the word scam is overused. There's a lot of bad projects also, but I'm a big believer that everybody should be able to experiment, and that's part of the beauty of open source. Let people experiment on the things that they want, even things that I might not think are a great idea. I'm all for it, and especially when it comes to kind of a regulatory angle, I'm definitely all for it. I don't want the government involved by any means.
I'm with you 100%. I do, I like my altcoins, I like my NFTs, but Bitcoin is my home. When I liquidated my daughter's savings account, we bought Bitcoin. We bought Bitcoin under $10,000 and we bought all the way down to $3,000. And she knows what Bitcoin is, she knows what altcoins are, but Bitcoin's really, I think that Bitcoin was created for the people, by the people. And it's an important tool for freedom. But I also do believe that without a lot of the competition we've seen from altcoins, Bitcoin might not be where it is today. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm willing to, kind of to look at everything and give everybody an equal chance to prove me wrong. And I also do agree with you that, well, in some aspect that we do need some sort of kind of regulation, but kind of, it's like something I struggle with all the time. But speaking about regulation, what are you going to be doing with the government? What's going on with that?
Hopefully getting them to do as little as possible, and as little as possible with crypto and with everything else. They're way too much in our lives. And I say this to Republicans and Democrats, and, even in our space, there's a lot of socialists left to them to look at it and say, it's a little bit too much now. Even for people who are very pro-government, I think that the government's gotten a bit out of hand, and we need to really rein it in. So I don't want to see them having these kind of regulations about crypto or really anything else. I'd like them to just kind of be out of our lives and out of our wallets and out of our bedrooms and out of our businesses.
I agree. And you're running for Senate, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm running for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire.
Nice. So what kind of inspired you to run for Senate? Because we know that you love freedom, you love Bitcoin, and it sounds like you really do want people to be able to improve their quality of life. And with this current, I don't want to even say this current administration, because I feel like it's a culmination of both administrations, of both sides, just because, we do have bipartisan support on a lot of different things. I think people like to get so upset and get so excited, like, oh, this person, that person, when in reality, it's both sides that are coming up with these types of solutions for problems they create.
Right. Yeah, it shouldn't be red versus blue. It's, the state versus you. There's bad policies on both sides of the aisle for sure, Republicans and Democrats. And it's really, the state versus the people. And, a lot of authoritarianism and, kind of trying to control our lives from both sides. So what made me decide to run was just looking at the world and where we are now. I'm firmly believe that we're in, whether you call it a fourth turning or what, we're in a time of major change. And humanity has seen these kind of things happen many, many, many times in history. They're sort of the norm. We just haven't had one in our lifetime. We haven't had one in about 100 years. So nobody really alive remembers the last time this happened, but it does happen kind of like clockwork every century or so. You have a big mix up in the way that the world works. Borders change, money changes, who people trust change, structures change, how everybody even thinks, even religion, even these kind of things change. And so I think we're in a time like that. And it's very, very key to be on the right side. I think there's a lot of things that are very wrong. There's a march of authoritarianism and an idea that government should have more and more control. And it's gotten much more control over the last couple decades, and especially over the last couple years. And I really worry about that. I see a lot of evil in the world, and I worry about evil. And I thought a lot about, good versus evil and how I could do something good, on the side of good to fight evil. And the best thing I could come up with was, this particular race came at a, very unusual race at an unusual time where I have a great chance of winning. And so I figured, why not? This is something I can do. I can spend the summer and I can work on this and potentially make a real difference in the world, especially if I'm elected.
I agree with you. And sometimes like I get people all the time like, when do you should run for office? I'm like, no. I'm not their type. I'm not their type. So I'll let people like you go ahead and take the reins on that. But I agree with a lot of what you said. I feel like, and I know when you were talking about, something that happened 100 years ago, were you kind of referring to the Great Depression?
No, so there's this great book called The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe. And it talks about how every century or so, there's something called a fourth turning where sort of everything just kind of changes. And it's primarily, a lot of it is driven in their theory anyway, is driven by demographics. So you have like big population waves, like the baby boom or the Bob Hope generation before that, or the Victorians. And then after the baby boom, you had Gen X and Gen Z and the millennials. But these big generations, people do tend to think a certain way. The 1950s are distinctly different from the 1980s, and the 1980s are distinctly different from now. There's times when there was a time when it was common for people to get in fistfights with police officers in the United States. That was just kind of like a thing. And that's not a thing now. Nobody gets in a fight with a cop. There's just different kind of cultural, and, there's times when sort of it was the man who was doing all the work and almost all of the women spouses were at home. There's just distinct differences from every generation. And with that comes how they think and how they run power structures. So as those generations age, the power structures age. And that's what we're witnessing right now. These big institutions like the New York Times and the World Economic Forum and CNN and everything, which were, basically built by baby boomers. Well, or at least the current form. New York Times is older than that, but, kind of the current form run by a generation that's on the decline age-wise. It's a very, very aging generation, and just naturally they're out of power. It's just a lot harder for people in their 70s and 80s to kind of hold on to power. And the institutions themselves, even though the institutions may be run by people in their 30s, it's an old institution, an old way of thinking. So kind of, Joe Rogan displacing CNN, or TikTok displacing, Fox News. These are the kind of things that you would expect in a fourth turning. Yeah, just these types of epic change that we see in the world happen every 100 years or so, and kind of the world as we know it changes. People in my grandfather's generation, a little older than my grandfather, they grew up not even seeing a car. They hadn't even seen an engine, and then just by the time they were in their teens, they found themselves over in the fields of France with planes flying over their head and mechanized tanks and mustard gas and these kind of things. So the world can change very rapidly, very significantly, very quickly. And we've seen that again and again throughout history. So I think we're in those times of change right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, and I have to be careful what I say because of the algo, but the whole panorama, that whole thing where money started changing and people's habits started changing, their spending, how people spent their leisure time, how the workforce has changed. We really saw like we saw the entire world stand still for almost 2 years, it feels like. And when you have something that of that magnitude that happens, it's kind of, I want to say it's traumatic for a lot of people, because people were so accustomed to living a certain type of lifestyle, like for the longest part. People, a couple got married, they decided they wanted to have kids, both parents had to work, and, people would take their kids to school every day. And that was, public schools are kind of like a daycare. Let's face it, that's what they are. That's how society is set up, because both parents had to work, especially in if your places, like you have to have high incomes to basically breathe, like LA County, Los Angeles County. That's what it was. And then now with everything being shut down, parents weren't necessarily able to work from home because they've got their kids. It's been like a crazy thing. So the whole entire world is changing. And like me, I'm a parent, so I'm watching all this stuff happen. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, my main goal is obviously to provide for my child, but also to make sure that she's okay, because it's scary. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with money in the United States. We don't know what's going to happen with money globally. Like we're seeing inflation, transitory inflation be at like an all-time high. We're seeing people that are like not able to really breathe. And I like to use that word, we can't breathe, because people from all different backgrounds can't, regardless of what culture, what race, what subgroup, whatever it is you identify with, we're all facing the same economic struggle because of what the people in power have done. And I think that Bitcoin is a super great tool that could help with some of that. Obviously, it's not the end all be all, like the answer for everything. But moving forward, like when you do plan to run for Senate, what are some of the policies? What are some of the types of changes that you want to bring forward to help the people?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the government is the root of a lot of the problems. You know, I'm a big believer in people. I think the people solve problems better than centralized power. You know, I'm a big believer in decentralization. You know, I think I've got to be the first person running for federal office who calls themselves a cypherpunk. You know, we need to have more power to the people and less power to people in office. You know, suppose I get down there, what does that suddenly make me smarter than you and all your listeners, that I get to lord over you and decide?
I'm going to interrupt you. No, it doesn't. And let me say this and let me interrupt. Okay. And on this channel, we talk about it. I don't care if you have a college education. I don't care if you have got a high school education. I don't care how much money you have. We are all equal. Right. I might be better at some things than you are, and you might be better at me than other things. And that's fine. That's beautiful. That's great. But the biggest issue we have in the United States of America is like a wealth gap. And a lot of this wealth gap comes from a lot of predatory practices. And people think that they're better than other people because they've got this education, they've got this money, or they've got this or that. And that's not the case. So back to you.
Yeah. So I want to put more power in the hands of the people. You know, I don't want centralized bureaucrats in fancy offices, and they steal the money from the people to pay for these things. So they go to your taxes, they take money from you. And then they, try and rule over you and say, we know better about anything from, what brand of deodorant you should use to what kind of DeFi project or NFT you should have. And they're in all kinds of aspects of our lives. And now they're trying to seek more and more control over, what we put in our bodies and, or don't put in our bodies, and, who we marry and all of these kind of things. It's really not government's business, because all government is other people. And the idea that certain people get to rule over others is just something that I'm fundamentally against. So what I would vote for is pretty much no on all kinds of expansion of government and, expansion of taxes. I want to see government reduced. I want to see the power of tyrants and authoritarians and centralized powers and bureaucracies and bureaucrats. I want to see all of that reduced radically and have the power put back into the hands of the people. I want people to have their own money. And if they think something is a good idea, whether it's vaccines or Ukraine or education or whatever they think is a good idea, let them do it with their own money. They don't need a middleman in the form of politicians to take their money and then put it somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The reason why I agree with you is I firsthand have seen politicians in Los Angeles County claim that they care about specific groups, that they care about specific organizations, that they care about making better communities. But guess what? Why are there schools in LA? Like, we have the highest tax rates in, I feel like, almost anywhere. Why is there a single school in Los Angeles County that is a 3 out of 10?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very worrisome to me. I live in a very nice neighborhood now. The school down the street from my house is a 5 out of 10. So my daughter goes to a private school that is more aligned with her and my father's ideologies. And it's just very upsetting to me that these people in power, especially in LA County, I know it's different than what you're running. It's like we have all this money coming in, like we have tourists, we have so much money and capital coming in, but it's like these public servants can't figure out where to put this money properly. Like, why do we have such a big homeless population here? Like, a lot of these things shouldn't be happening with the amount of money and resources that we have. So I'm with you. I want to see the government have less power and more power put in the people's power. And one of the reasons why a community center that I support, I looked at how much money I have to pay for taxes. And if I could say, if the government was like, you know what, take your tax dollars and you can put them, you have the opportunity to put them in these places instead of paying us, I would love to give 100% of my taxes to community centers that I know where the money's going. I know they're supporting kids. I know they're supporting mental health. I know what they're doing. They're creating I hate the term safe space, but that's what it is. A lot of community centers are kind of safe spaces for our youth, places where they can go if they have bad issues at home. There's adults that are there that can help them with things. So I would rather be able to put my money there than give it to the IRS and have the IRS, I don't like, where the hell is my money gone?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the way it should be across the board. Bureaucrats are never going to spend your money as wisely as you can, and the difference is because they don't have accountability. So you mentioned a lot of money being spent in LA. Money won't solve it. The more money they have, it actually makes things worse
Agree.
because then it's more cronies and more people, and they'll hire more of their friends to do phony jobs that they're not really doing anything, or they'll mess around. You know, a lot of bureaucrats, they want to have more employees and more influence and bigger budgets. So there's no amount of money that can solve that. What can solve it is taking away that power, because they don't have accountability. They can literally steal it from you. They'll say, Wendy, pay your taxes or you go to jail. We're going to put you in a cage. We're going to take everything you own. And that's true. I mean, if you just said, if you just went on the air right now and said, I refuse, I'm never paying again, it's only a matter of years before they would lock you up and put you in a cage. And so they don't have to answer to you. They don't have to give a good case for it. They don't have to spend it wisely. They don't care. If you go to your local community center and that's a nonprofit, they do care. They want your donations. They want to show you that they're doing a good job. And if the leaders of it start buying themselves Lambos, you're less likely to give them money. Or if they start hiring their cronies for phony no-show jobs or whatever, you're going to be less likely to give. And that's accountability. And that's what we have in the private sector. That's what we have when the power is put with the hands of the people. Whenever you steal that power from the people and you put it in the hands of government, and you say, oh no, these people are special. They don't need accountability. They can take your money whether you like it or not. They don't have to sell you on it. They'll just take it. And there's very, very little you can do about it. That creates a power imbalance that leads to bad things.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's exactly what we're seeing in the United States is like they introduce government and they introduce regulations to kind of help protect, do whatever. And I'll play devil's advocate here. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're really trying to do the right thing, but it just got I feel like became so easy to infiltrate and do the wrong thing, that so many greedy people, so many people with power and influence, wanted those types of jobs. And we even see with small government jobs, like people want to get small government jobs because they're cushy.
Right.
They provide good pay and benefits, but then when they get in, they kind of get lazy. And it's, to me, it's just very problematic. So I'm happy that you are going to be running. I'm happy, and I hope you win. I will do whatever I can to support you, because I do want change, and I do want it to be positive change, or at least I want it to be, at least I want to try to fight fight the good fight for, my child's future. Because at this point, it's not about me. I'm old. I'm not going to be around here forever. My daughter's going to be here a lot longer than I am, and she deserves to have a good quality life. Your kids deserve to have a good quality life. The viewers, your guys' kids, your families, you guys all deserve to have a good quality life. And I just feel like all the people in power, both sides, are just they're not with it right now.
Yeah, they're really out of touch. I've noticed that on the campaign trail, how out of touch a lot of these politicians are. They don't do Zooms like this. They don't do, it's all scripted and careful. You got to go through a publicist, like their Lady Gaga or something. And it's really weird. I disclose my mobile number. I talk to voters all the time. And I asked one of my campaign experts, I said, why don't the other candidates do this? Why don't they go on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces? And he says, oh no, their consultants won't let them, because they're afraid that they'll get a question that the candidate can't answer. And I'm like, well, they shouldn't be running then. It's there should be more access and more of these kind of things talked about, because it's important. It's important for our kids' future and our nation's future.
Can you imagine like getting asked a question and not having any answer and just politely saying, I'll come back. I'll get back to you on that. I think that's kind of, we're humans. You should not have, let me tell you this. If you have an answer for every single thing I ask you, you are full of it. Okay. You're not human. You're a robot. Because guess what, Bruce, you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you have an answer for everything I ask you, I don't trust you.
Did you ever watch them, like how fast they pivot? You ask about NFTs and they'll say, yes, and this is why we need to support our foreign policy. Like they'll just change the subject. It's very slick and very BS-y, and especially in an age of TikTok. And some of my most popular content is when you may have seen it, I do them all the time. I just whip out my phone and I talk for under 2 minutes, and I get thousands of views on those, because people can see that it's from the heart. I don't have a script. Nobody's feeding me a line. I'm walking down the street, and it may not be perfect. I might flub, or I may not know all the facts on a certain thing, but they see that it's real. And a lot of, particularly the higher up you go, and I'm not trying to bash bash the president. It's just like anybody else. But you know,
Right.
he came here to New Hampshire, and it was just super scripted. The audience was chosen, the questions were chosen, nobody was allowed anywhere near it. It's just a big fake show that could happen anywhere. It might as well have been on a green screen. You know, there was no point in him even coming to New Hampshire because it's so highly scripted and planned. And I think that's divorcing itself from what politics should be. You know, in an age before the internet, it was, you know, politicians were out there in the public shaking hands, and I think they should do that even more, you know, over the digital square rather than in person, you know.
I agree with you 100%. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Where, if people want to find you, if they want to support you, I don't know if you're accepting campaign donations. I'm not, you know, where can tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, I started accepting donations. I originally said I was going to fund the thing myself. I think that, you know, it's good to get more
You should.
support.
I got to interrupt. You should get support, because
Yeah.
I would rather donate
Right.
to somebody like you. And you should have that open. People want to support
Yeah.
you. If they want to donate to you, let them. I think that it's an amazing thing, and you deserve it, because you're really doing a service and you're putting yourself out there. And, you know, people want to support
Thank
you,
you.
do it.
And it's nice to get, you know, even $5 donations show support, and they work great on my numbers to show that I'm getting supporters and stuff like that. So I love the support, but the primary goal of my website is to educate people. I am who I am. I'm not for everybody. I have some controversial opinions and things like that, but I'm very honest and open and transparent about who I am and what I stand for. And more importantly, why. Even for people who disagree with me, I want to discuss why and see, because one of us is right and one of us wrong. I want to be right. And if I'm wrong, I want to know, and I want to at least have people understand why I believe what I believe. So they can visit my website, fenton.com. I'm very accessible on Twitter and Spaces and Clubhouse and you know, that kind of thing. You know, my mobile number, I released that 603-957-6300. You know, people can call me, text me. You know, I want people to go to my website, see who I am, and if they agree, then they can, if they're in New Hampshire, vote for me or share it with people that they know in New Hampshire, and you know, get the word out. Once people see what I believe in, I think that I'll get a lot of votes for it.
Awesome. Bruce, thank you so much. And audience,
Thank you.
if you like what you heard, if you want to support Bruce, if you want to learn more about it, if you have questions to ask him, which I think, just like when we talk about anything in crypto, we talk about Bitcoin, whatever it is, I always encourage you guys to listen to what I say. Don't necessarily trust me. Hear what I say, hear my opinion, take what resonated to you from my talk, build, and then take it and build upon it inside yourself. That's what you got to do. You cannot trust anybody. You have to verify things. And you also have to take parts that are good for you. Not everything I say you're going to agree with, and that's okay. It's the beauty of it. But anyways, I support Bruce. I think what he's doing is good, and I'm happy to watch you win. And again, you guys, you want to learn more, links are down below. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.